Well, hi and welcome back to my channel. This is just a revisit of the finding the outer foil on a capacitor. If you haven't seen my earlier video, this one I'm using a more sensitive oscilloscope just to show that it can be much easier to tell if you have a sensitive enough instrument available. So here I've got a typical paper capacitor, and the red foil end is marked with a red line, which I hope you can see here. I hasten to add that I'm not an expert on making videos at all, and I'm only using a phone to film this. Yeah, there's a simple paper capacitor, and if I place my finger and thumb on it without touching either end, you can see that the oscilloscope trace is quite large there. That's because the foil end is on the signal end rather than the ground end, and there's quite a lot of noise visible on the oscilloscope. And that's almost on its most sensitive setting though, so that's only a small amount of millivolts there of noise. But it shows up quite clearly on this oscilloscope, which it didn't on the other one. Now if I take the capacitor off the trace, turn it round, now I have grounded the foil end. The red line is going to the ground of the oscilloscope, and you hopefully can see that the trace is now probably about half what it was. So I'm, or not touching either wire at the ends. I'm just holding capacitor between my thumb and forefinger, and it's the amount of noise from this room that I'm picking up, mainly 50 hertz that you're seeing there. So yeah, there's less noise with the foil end grounded. And we go back the other way just to make sure. Foil to signal end, and ground to the other end. And now with the foil connected to the signal end rather than the ground end, the trace is about twice the size it was. So hopefully we should be able to identify the foil side on an unmarked capacitor. So I've got an unmarked capacitor here, and if I connect one side, whichever side, both unmarked, so that's one side to ground, and the other side, signal side to the other end of the capacitor, that's the trace I get. That may be that I picked the foil side first go. So if we take that one off and that one off, connect the ground to the other end and the signal to that end, but there's not a lot of difference, which does prove the point that the type of capacitor makes a difference. But there we are. So that's about 2 divisions there. Swap it round, and that's probably about 1.5 divisions. So there is a tiny difference there, but it's slightly bigger when I put it that way round. So although the difference is much smaller, which I think is a positive indication that the modern capacitors are much better and it matters a lot less now, nevertheless we have identified that the end going to the signal at the moment is the noisier end, so that must be the foil end. So when the foil end was grounded, there was less noise. So I take my Sharpie and mark that end up as being the foil end. But there we are. It's made 2 points in one go really, because it has shown that the difference, although it's there, is very small with the modern capacitor compared to the old one. Because here's the old one, and when I connected the signal end to that end, I've got a very large trace, and I connected the foil end to ground, and that's to the other end as a much smaller trace. Do it with the modern capacitor, so foil to signal, so there's about two centimeters, foil grounded, about 1.5 centimeters. So yeah, there is a difference. It's very small with modern capacitor, but this system does work. And if you wanted to speed up the whole process, you can make up just a little toggle switch. So you could clip each capacitor in, throw the toggle switch one way or another, and if you wire it correctly, then whichever end the toggle of the switch is pointing to would be your foil end. You could easily knock up a simple little thing with a toggle switch. But I just sort of clarify that because somebody did make the comment he couldn't really see what I was doing. I did point out that I'm only using a phone, there's no professional equipment. This oscilloscope is absolutely huge, and if I'm careful, if I can move the camera, look, although it doesn't look too big from there, it is huge. And believe me, it weighs a ton, and it's got 18 valves or tubes depending on where you come from. So it's a huge weight to lug around, and I rarely bring it out at all. And I notice now that only one trace seems to be working properly. The other trace does come on, but that's another little job to sort out. It needs a lot of attention anyway. It's about 60 years old. Okay, I hope that's of interest to some people, and I'm sorry it's more on the same subject, but I just thought that I would show that with the better scope you can actually tell much more. So hopefully you enjoyed that, and thanks for watching, and goodbye.